Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to the February 26th committee meeting of the Upper Darby School Board of Directors. For tonight's purposes of the meeting, the first meeting will be the Education and Pupil Services agenda. The second meeting will be the Finance and Operations meeting. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The meeting of the Education and Pupil Services will please come to order. I've marked everyone present for tonight. Before we start, I want to apologize for the setup here. We have a great play going on at the Upper Darby High School this week, and they are practicing, and we can't use the auditorium. So I do want to apologize for this setup. This is not our typical setup. We typically don't have our backs to the community, and so I do want to apologize ahead of time. I also want to thank all of you for coming out here tonight and to hear the potential plans that the school district has. I want to reiterate that there will be no vote taken tonight. The board does not vote at committee meetings. We simply see if we have consensus to move an item forward to our regularly scheduled board meeting on March 12th for a vote. But before I start this meeting, I do want to lay out some of the ground rules for public participation. At committee meetings, we want to have a dialogue with our community, and that is the purpose of them. The administration typically presents recommendations to us, and then we have a dialogue. So after the administration presents their agenda items, the board will ask their questions. Once we go through all the agenda items, we will then ask for public comment. At that time, we're going to keep our comments limited to 4 minutes, but it is an opportunity to go back and forth. And if something isn't answered during the comment period, please know that you can approach us after the meeting. I would appreciate if you would please do not call out. It is in our board policy that we want there to be an orderly expression of public comment. We do provide an opportunity at each open meeting of the board for the residents and taxpayers of the school district, association presidents to comment on matters of concern. Again, official action will be happening at the March 12th board meeting. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Marshaleck. If you could please review our agenda for this evening for the Education and Pupil Services.
Agenda item number one is informational for the board and public only, is the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, information and data. Dr. Pugliese will present the information and also some of the recommendations that we will, or some of the items, the things that we do here in the school district to address some of the concerns and items that are, or some of the data in the survey. We also have agenda number two, which is split into two smaller pieces. This is for board action. Both items, the district administration will be seeking direction from the board in terms of developing an ad hoc committee to address the question or concern regarding the school calendar and the start date or start times, and also the elementary report cards. So with your permission, President Mitchell, we will begin. Okay. So our first item is the Pennsylvania Youth Survey results. Like I said, Dr. Pugliese and myself will go through the presentation. We'll keep it to about 10 minutes, and we'll go from there. The agenda this evening for this specific presentation, we'll talk about the PAYS survey, or the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. What is it? And why is the data valuable? But also who participated in the survey, the Upper Darby School District data and information collected from that survey, the summary of these data, and also what's working for our school district. What are some of the things that we do to address the social and emotional needs of our students here in Upper Darby School District, specifically at our secondary schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Pugliese, who will take it from here.
Thanks, Mr. Marshaleck. Oh, good evening, everybody. The PAYS survey, Pennsylvania Youth Survey. We administer the survey to students in 6th, 8th, 10th, 12th grades, and we do the survey in odd years. In my time, we've done it in 2013, 2015, and 2017, and tonight we will present the data from our 2017 administration. You see the sponsors. There are across the Commonwealth. This is a very well-supported survey, and it is supported by different agencies and entities to help get participation, to help get important information. It's anonymous, it's voluntary, and it is confidential when it comes to our students participating. Generally speaking, the questions in the survey cover attitudes and behaviors about students' experiences. And you see, some of the topics are, there's some heavy stuff, but it's important, and they are asking students questions about the behaviors they are taking part in, their attitudes, their feelings, their thoughts. One of the purposes of the survey itself is to help Pennsylvania schools, as well as other groups in Pennsylvania, to be preventative and help prevent behaviors that are unsafe and behaviors that are just not promoting good social behavior. The reason that it's important is because it can give us really important insight into our students' lives and the decisions that they make. They tell us about the things that they are experiencing. And it also helps us understand the root causes for those behaviors and those attitudes. So we're going to go through the data, and some of the results can be upsetting, but I want everybody to understand that from my perspective, I think from our perspective, students are telling us this information. So it's much better for students to report information to us that might be upsetting because we know about it, we can do something about it, as opposed to potentially them feeling this way and not reporting. So it's a good thing that they are sharing this information with us. Here's the number of students that have taken it. You see over 250,000 across Pennsylvania. Almost 3,000 students in Upper Darby took this survey. 79% of the students who were eligible. But I really want to highlight this and compliment our schools because in 2017 we had 896 more students take the survey. So major compliments to Ms. Simone and the staff at the high school, Dr. Yersone here at Beverly Hills, Mr. Salerno, who was at Drexel Hill Middle School at the time, Dr. Alloway. The staffs there really made the effort and really, as you see, significantly increased our participation. So that was really wonderful. And that was one of our goals going into the survey, was to have an increased rate of participation, and we hit that mark. All right, so we're going to go through some of the results. The report itself, I believe, will be on our website after tonight's meeting, so you can see it's a very thorough, very detailed report. We're going to highlight some of the results, but there's a lot more than what we'll share tonight. As you see, the most frequent of the antisocial behavior, or other antisocial behavior that we saw was being suspended from school, which is an area that we are working to improve. We want to see students in school as frequently as possible. So we are working to help reduce the number of days and reduce the amount of time that students miss school due to suspension. This is information about depression and suicide risk. And again, this is heavy stuff. It's upsetting that any student in our schools would feel depressed or feel suicidal. It's important that we know it, and we're working to identify who are these students and how can we help them. How can we help them in our schools, and how can we possibly, if necessary, connect them to services outside our schools. This is a question where they're asked about feeling safe in school. So 73%, a little over 73% of the students said they feel safe in school, which we want that to be 100%. We want to see that improve, but we've got a good start. It's a little bit down from 2015 and a little bit lower than the average across Pennsylvania. This question was about the frequency of bullying in schools. So remember, this was about, the question was about not being bullied. So we had 76.8% of the students indicate that in the last 12 months they were not bullied in school. Again, we would like that to be, at 100%, but we're in a good spot. We've got a large majority of our students who are not experiencing bullying. I think this has a lot to do with our district policy, as well as the way we communicate our policy, the frequency with which we do that. I think that while bullying is something we want to eliminate completely, I think we do a very good job of communicating and working with our schools and staff, families, and students. And I think we see an example here. So that's really good. I think that's a positive that we have such a high rate of students not being bullied. This has to do with having one-on-one opportunities with a teacher. I think this is awesome that we have over 76% of the students who have an opportunity to have one-on-one experience with a teacher. Very consistent with our previous results. When we broke out the grade level results, what we found is that over 83% of 12th grade students reported that they had opportunities, which is awesome. So we'd love to see, okay, what are some of the things that we're doing really well in 12th grade that we can share with our other grades across the district. So having opportunities to talk one-on-one with the teacher, we're doing really well. Similarly, this item had to do with students having opportunities to be a part of class activities and discussion. Over 86% of the students reported that they have that type of opportunity, which is a great sign for engagement in our classrooms, a great sign for students to be able to build relationships with one another, but also with our teachers and staff, which is awesome. This question had to do with receiving praise from a teacher when a student's working hard. So we have over 54% of the students saying that they receive praise from their teachers when they work hard. There's a little bit of a dip from a few years ago, but it was higher than the average across the Commonwealth. One of the things that's really cool about this is one of the programs we're doing where we're helping teachers build stronger relationships with their students. Praise is one of the specific skills where we're focusing our attention. So I really pay close attention to this, and it's great that so many students are seeing and recognizing that they're receiving praise from their teachers. We want to see that increase, but we're on a good path to building stronger relationships with students through praise. Again, that's a small sample of the results. There are many, many other questions and results that you'll be able to find in the report. But what we found as we talk about this and these results is that we have to continue to do the wonderful things that we are doing across the district. We have work to do. We haven't reached perfection, but we do know we have a lot of positive momentum going in that direction. But as a department, the Student Services Department, we still have areas where we want to see improvement, and that's our goal to continue, or that's our mission, to continue to provide those services. Yeah, here are some of the wonderful programs across the district that we are implementing. Mr. Marshaleck's going to review them. I do want to compliment the board and the administration at this table and across the stage on the courage that you have had and continue to have to implement programs that address the social and emotional needs of our students. I say it very frequently. I'm very lucky to be a part of a district that has the courage to devote serious time and resources to helping social and emotional skills of our students and staff. So compliments to you, Mr. Marshaleck. Do it.
Yes, thank you. And
Almost.
there goes the timer. Almost.
All right.
So one of the things Dr. Pugliese and I talked about, when reviewing this presentation was there's a lot of information, a lot of things that we do, across our district to support students in schools when it comes to social and emotional learning. And it might look like a very daunting list of a lot of things we have to kind of manage and plates are spinning in the air. But really all of these things you see listed here, and I'll go through some of the acronyms as well, really come together to meet the needs of one social and emotional learning approach. It's one of the things that we're working on as a department is kind of tying all these things together to make it cohesive and working in tandem with each other. And again, recently this year we implemented trauma-informed initiatives with the Lakeside group. Our social work services, counseling services, psychological services. If you jump down a little bit, the super teacher program, that's supportive relationships. Dr. Pugliese mentioned about praise of students and teachers. PBIS is positive behavior interventions and supports, which is one of our major frameworks. The PREPARE model, which also we have listed out there, how to respond to crisis and circle back. Student assistance program, and of course our MTSS program, which encompasses a lot of different things we talked about or you see on this slide here. So that summarizes our presentation. Again, it's a small sample of the data that was collected through the survey. We will be posting the survey or the summary report on our district website for you to take a look at and go through. It's about 100 pages, so it's a lot of information, but explains some of the areas in more depth, and also you can review all the different areas that were assessed through this survey. So with that, do you have any questions from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Marshaleck. I do have a question. If you could turn off your mic, I think I wouldn't buzz. Thank you. With this, when do you think you'll be reporting out on what the opportunities are in the PACE survey to enhance any of these programs? Would there be a follow-up to it as far as the opportunities that would be available?
I mean, certainly, we can do an update or a follow-up to any of this information. I guess I'm just curious, in terms of the things we're proposing that we currently do, we want to enhance.
Well, if you see any opportunity, I don't know if you're seeing any opportunities of things, or a lot of these things have been implemented within the last few years. So, are you seeing positive trends through them? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
No, I understand. And yes, certainly anything that we want to, bring forward or enhance or adjust or, offers a new opportunity, we would certainly bring before you. And we're always going to find ways, I think, as a district as a whole, as administration, teachers, and schools, to make this better for all of our students. We know there's a lot of area of growth within our social and emotional learning for all of our students. And it's a constant focus of our entire district staff, for sure. So we certainly will.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from board members?
I have one question. So you had said in the beginning that this is voluntary. Do we know the participation rate across the state? I mean, do all the school districts participate? And do we get a chance to look at this data compared to other districts like ours? I mean, I know this is just a subset, but that might be interesting to see how we're doing with other size districts and things like that.
The report that we receive does give us a comparison to the state, so we can see that. I think your first question was, can we see how many students participated in other?
School districts.
I think that tells us that too. I'm not sure. We can look into that definitely, but we know the number of students, so it was 250-some thousand, and then we do get in the report a comparison. They give us, they give us our most recent data, they give us our last surveys data, so 2 years ago, and then they give us the state. So we get to do a quick comparison. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Just have a quick question. So it looks like you have a comprehensive list of supports and services there. Are there any other items that you're looking at that maybe other districts or other things out there that you're considering or that you've evaluated that could be added to the list just to increase what we're doing?
One of the things that we recently put into place at our Title I elementary schools is the addition of the elementary guidance counselors, which is another addition. And of course, we're bringing forward, any types of improvements in additional pupil services and support staff, for all of our schools to look at other ways to support our kids and our students in that area, enhancing the psychological services, enhancing the counseling services, and bringing additional supports in that way. One thing, it's funny you bring that up, Mr. Brown, that Chris and I talked about today was, it's one thing to have a lot of things going on, or to do a couple of things really, really well. So, we think we have a lot of things right now that are kind of out there in our district that we want to try to tie together and pull together to then really assess what else is needed. Where are the gaps in that continuum? Where are the things we have to fill in with the holes there to make it better? So we certainly always look for different things. But we also be mindful of spinning too many plates at one point in time.
Question about the bullying question. Just, can I ask how that was phrased? What I heard was students were asked if they've not been bullied in school, or is that any form of bullying? What I'm thinking of is, excuse me, in this day and age, cyberbullying is a big issue, and I'm wondering if the way the question was worded excluded that.
We can check for sure. I think it was a general question about being bullied, but as I'm looking at the way we worded the data, but I can check for sure so you have the specifics.
Thank you.
Dr. Pugliese.
You bring up a good point about the fact that it's not that behavior we don't, and the other reason that I think that's the case is the goal here isn't just to look at behavior in school, it's community based, it's holistic from the standpoint of what's the student experiencing. Sorry.
Dr. Pugliese. We don't make the questions for the survey, right? This is a statewide survey, right?
That is correct. Yeah, we do not generate the survey items, right?
So if you see an opportunity for that, perhaps you could give some feedback to whoever creates it. Are there any other comments or questions from the board about this informational item? Okay.
I just wanted to say we get a very nice framed certificate of participation too. So yes, thank you, Dr. Manfred. So the board, this is for you. This is you, Upper Darby School District. Thank you.
Thank you. The next agenda item.
So the second agenda item is again for board action. You know, we're looking for some direction from the board of school directors in terms of what are our next steps in terms of addressing the school calendar concern that was raised at the last board meeting, but also the elementary report card question as well in terms of reviewing those, you know, and looking at them further.
So I'm going to ask the board, would you like the administration to develop an ad hoc committee to review the potential start dates for future calendars? We should have a discussion about that. I mean, does anyone oppose it? Let's just say that.
No opposition here.
Is it start date of school or start time of
Use
each?
your microphone now.
Sorry, is it start date of the school year or start time of the school day, or both?
We are, the concern that was raised at the last school board meeting was the date of the start time of the school year being in August. A board member expressed concerns about the temperature in the buildings in August and would like consideration to evaluate whether there is a better time of year to begin school.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, this would be for the 2021 school year. The 1920 school year has already been approved.
So maybe the administration could just take a look and see what the other schools or districts are doing throughout the county and any specific concerns that we have with our facilities in the district. And then maybe report back to us at some point. The next one was the elementary school report cards. Again, a board member had brought up a concern about the elementary school report cards. The administration is wondering if the board would like them to develop a committee to review the elementary school report cards and to decide whether a change is warranted and if it should be brought forward to the board.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, we already have the home schools, have their meetings monthly, and we have the parent advisory group. I mean, maybe we can just bring these issues up to, one of those already existing, committees that we have instead of creating something new, and talk it through with them and, and involve, teachers and administrators.
I agree. I think maybe we could use our home and schools and the parent advisory committee to see if there is an issue, and then maybe then we can move it to the administration and go from there.
So Dr. Taylor, you want the board to go to the home and school meetings and ask, or the administrators are already part of that group, and I know Ms. Jordan participates as well.
I would volunteer to go, and Ms. Curry, if you wanted to join me.
Yes, being that I'm the one that brought it up in the last meeting, I would definitely want to be a part of that process. Thank you.
Board members are always welcome to attend the parent advisory groups and the home and school meetings. So Dr. McGarry, if you could just include that for the board to know when the next meeting would be.
When we hold those meetings, we usually review the committee meeting agendas. And I think what we'll do is we'll bring up, I think in 2017, we had a review of the elementary report cards. It was a public presentation. We formed a committee, and that's what landed on the current elementary school report cards. We can certainly bring that back up again as a review, and then talk about the standards that have to be addressed. So we'll bring that up at that next meeting, at the next home and school president's meeting.
Thank you. Make sure the board knows when that is. That completes the education and pupil services agenda. At this time, I would take comments from the public on the agenda items that have been presented so far. If you have a comment or a question, you can come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. And again, it would be a 4-minute time frame for a dialogue, but we'd be open to answering any additional questions afterwards. Are there any questions or comments from the board? From the public.
Hi, my name is Bill Kaplan. I'm at 241 Highland Avenue in Upper Darby. And the first comment is just wanted to say that the scope and the breadth of the student services is something that I very much not only appreciate, but admire, right? So in our school district. So I do appreciate hearing this result and knowing what our students are going through, and then knowing that there are responses that the district is already implemented. So I appreciate that. And then the second comment, just to say how important this report card, I come from Highland Park, where most of the parents, many of the parents are English language learners and from other countries, and that has always caused a real point of confusion to our parents. And so I really like the idea of bringing it to the district-wide parent advisory, the home and school advisory, right, thank you. So I think that's a really good idea, but that cannot be underestimated. It sounds like a very small thing, but we have hundreds of parents that are confused at least 3 times a year when these report cards come out, and it causes a lot of anxiety. So I really appreciate those 2 aspects. Thanks.
Thank you.
James Santora, 5228 Apache Lane, Drexel Hill. First of all, thanks for allowing us to speak on these issues. The one that I want to focus in on was the start of the school year. I was adamantly opposed when it was first brought up to move the school year back into August and start in August. And it was actually Dr. McGarry that convinced me otherwise, because of the extra time that the teachers and students have to prepare for the testing that comes as a gift from the state. And he, and Dr. McGarry, correct me if I'm wrong, but you truly believed that that extra week was extremely important as an overall process at the time. I don't know if you still feel that way, but if that is the case, I'd highly recommend keeping that August timeline. And I understand your concern as well, because I now have a son that works and it's going to have effect on him and things like that. But at the end of the day, my biggest concern, unfortunately, is still those scores. And, you know, there's certain ones that aren't being accounted for towards a graduating, and there's other graduating requirement, but there's other options. But for the younger kids, it's still out there, and it's still a label that gets put in our school district. So those are my concerns on that. It's great to see the participation level up on these surveys, so thank you for your efforts, administration.
At this point in time, it's still a concern for the district. The Commonwealth is attempting to push back the exam more and more and more. Ideally, we'd like to have the exam almost toward the end of the school year. And somewhat of a joke, you know, school almost seems like it's over when the students complete that test. If it's earlier in March or it's in April, getting students to focus after that assessment is a real issue, and it's a real concern. The other point of clarity is that we've, when the weather is bad, whether it's warm in the beginning of the year or there's snow days in the middle of the year, the district loses professional development time with teachers. So another reason why we front load the schedule the way that we do is that having professional development and school time during the year or at the end of the year is not as productive for teachers. As I had said to Ms. Curry the other evening when this was presented publicly, what other school districts have done is they've removed spring break. The entire week of spring break goes away. That allows us to not go so late into June, which is equally as warm in August. And that would be a consideration if we had that conversation moving forward. Either way, within the parameters of the school year, you'd want to have, understandably so, avoid hot days in the beginning of the year and avoid hot days at the end of the year. And the way that you would do that is you would have to free up time in the schedule somewhere else in the calendar, which may mean spring break and different times kind of going away. We are one of the few school districts that does have an entire week off for spring break, and that's a nice luxury that this school district does have at this point in time.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith?
Hi, Kate Smith, 4716 Cedar Lane. Thank you for the opportunity for questions and comments. My first comment was just about the elementary report card. And when this topic came up at one of the committee meetings earlier this school year, one of the suggestions was that it would be helpful if administration could put out a tutorial about the report cards so that parents across the district who can't make it to meetings or maybe who have new principals, etc., would be better able to understand the amount of information that you are providing to parents and guardians about how their children are learning. So I just wanted to ask that question again, if it would be possible for there to be a tutorial, a video, much like you did the web. I think it was in connection to the web tutorial that you did, how to use the district website. Could there be one that explained the information on the report card? And could you maybe consider having it have captions so people who don't easily understand English would be able to access the information? With the PACE survey, it looked like there were about 3,000 students who participated, and I wondered what the target is for participation for this year. Are you hoping to get a similar amount of students or an increase in the student participation?
Hi, Ms. Smith.
Hi.
We want to see that grow, absolutely. In 2015, we had about 55% of the eligible students. And so when we presented and we talked about it, that was a real area that we wanted to see improvement in. We went from 55% to almost 80%. So we made a big jump in terms of the number of students participating. I think it'll be helpful. We don't have a set goal right now. We want to see it increase, and we'll think about that. So we're willing to listen to suggestions, but we definitely want to see the number. We want as many students as possible to participate.
And is the 18% of students who report being suspended based on that PACE survey, is that in line with our actual suspension rate across the district?
Ooh, excellent question. We have to look at that specifically. I don't have that number in front of me right now. That's a great question.
So my concern, or why I was asking that question, is if we're making decisions about how to allocate resources, et cetera, does the PACE data, is that applicable? Is it generalized enough to represent all of the school district and what you need, or does that even matter? If 18% of the students who are taking the PACE survey are reporting being suspended or having other undesirable behaviors and consequences, it doesn't need to be addressed regardless. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
It's one source of data that we use to plan for interventions and implementation. We also have a variety of monitoring tools. We look at suspension data, discipline data, whether it's special education students or our district as a whole. So the PACE survey, while being very important, every 2 years it's delivered to school districts. We use that as one source of data to help us plan for our approach to intervene for students.
All right, Patricia Collins-Spina. Address 7022 Clinton Road in good old Upper Darby, PA. I was watching closely the results of the PACE statewide survey, and unless I missed it, because I have traumatic brain injuries, so some days my memory works better than others, I missed what the results of two very important issues. How many students, I'm the mother of 4 sons, one who died recently, and one who has a child that's coming of school age. And I missed the results for how many students experience depression and suicidal thoughts because I have a family member that committed suicide. And I also didn't see the results of students who are actively using drugs and alcohol because our oldest son started using drugs and alcohol in middle school and high school, and he died recently of a drug overdose. So I'm very concerned about them issues concerning our school students.
Well, first, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Would it be okay, we have the report itself, would it be okay if we connect after the meeting and we can go through some of that so I can share with you the specific data that you were asking?
I might need to leave early tonight, so if I'm not here when the meeting ends, if I could have a contact number for someone to go over those results with me.
Absolutely, I'll give you my card as soon as we finish right here. In the meantime, we do have the result. This was the results from the depression and suicide risk. What we don't have is, I think you were asking about alcohol as well. Yeah.
How many students are actively using drugs and alcohol?
Right, those results are in the report. We just didn't pull them out for tonight's presentation, but we can share them with you.
And are there intervention programs in place in the middle schools and the grade schools and middle schools, high school to help students with those issues?
Yeah, yes, a number. Primarily, we have the Student Assistance Program, most frequently referred to as the SAP program, which we have in place that is would directly address drug and alcohol concerns. It's not the only program, but that's one that we have at all levels, and we work closely with Holcomb to get support for our families and students in those areas.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank
I
you.
look forward to having your contact.
You got it.
Thank you very much.
We did a NOTE program at the high school last year on heroin and drug addiction. We're going to try and bring that to the middle schools and the high schools. And we're recently trying to partner with Upper Darby Police Department on a alcohol awareness for 16-year-olds getting ready to drive. So we're trying to support Upper Darby Police on a grant that they're trying to receive to support the community in the school district for that as well.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public or questions? Okay, we can just review the agenda. The first agenda item, the PAYS survey, was informational for the board. The second 2 items were board action, and I think we already said that we would be interested in having you at least look at those things in the different areas we said in an ad hoc committee and then bring that back to the board. Is the board okay with all of that? Yes. Yes? Yes. Okay. For this section of the meeting, there's a motion in order for adjournment. Do you want to continue right on?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to continue right on to the Finance and Operations Committee. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Taylor.